This video, I'm going to show you how to read from a file using Java. Um, and we'll go into writing to a file as well in successive video. Actually, there's going to be about 3 or 4 of these. The first one, though, is reading from a file. And the second one, I'm going to have you use that data and draw a bar graph with it. But in this one, we're simply going to read from the file. And so just so you see what we're working with, I'll make sure this link is in the description. And this is a file that I got from Craggle, which is a database website, craggle.com. And you'll be able to download it. And when you download it, you're going to want to make sure you place this file into whatever folder where your Java file exists, because it needs to access it. And the way that I'm programming it, it's looking for it in the same folder as the where the Java file exists. So drag and drop that wherever that might be for you. Okay, and all right, so let's get to looking at what the code now will look like. So to use the buffer reader, which is the library we're going to use to read from a file, you need these two imports. The IO is really what the buffer reader is using, but then you also need the util for some stuff we're doing in here, specifically some array list stuff that we're going to do, as well as exceptions that we have. All right, so this is really the gist of the code when you're reading from a file. You can put this in a try catch, or you can make sure it's a method, a function that has that throws an IO exception. Either way, I'll show you both examples. And then you need to create a buffer reader file. I just called it F, could have called it anything. And then you read in your file that you want to read in this instance, this CSV file, which is comma separated values, a common Excel spreadsheet type file. And then we're going to save it, each one to this string variable S. So this is basically looking at each line. This is standard protocol. And while there is a line to read in, we're going to save it to S. And this will stop this while loop when there's no more lines to read in. And we just print out each line to the screen. We're going to do more than that, but that's kind of what this basic code will do. So I'm going to share some starter code with you here. This is on GitHub, and I'll show you what this looks like in a second, but that's how you're going to access it. I'll have the link to this in the description as well. And what we're going to do here is we're going to, in this starter code, actually, there's 4 class variables that are important. This name variable is just going to print some stuff to the screen for us. This is a GUI, a graphical user interface that we're going to use as a using the console. And then I'm going to have 3 different array lists. One that's going to hold each line from the database, and then we're going to break apart each line and save the name to this name, pnames, player names array list, and then count, which is going to count how many times each of the names appears in the database. So the database that we have here is actually Player of the Week winners from the NBA from, I think, 1985 until like last year. Actually, maybe even early 2000, fall 2018. The winners of each of those each week. So it's a lot of data. And we're going to see, the gist of this is to see like who are the top guys who won the most throughout the years. And the one function we're going to need to use is this split function, because it's comma delimited. And so we need to, what this split thing does is it looks for a comma. And when it looks at the data that's stored, say, in this array list, it looks for all the commas and breaks apart that string into an array of strings separated by each column. And so now this array will hold each item that has been separated. I'll give you a better example of what that will look like when we look at the code. So let's go ahead and look at the code. All right, so I'm in BlueJ. You can use any Java compiler that you'd want. Just quickly explain this, and this is, and the name of our file is our class is called bar graph, because that's what we're going to make ultimately. We're not going to get to that in this video, but in the next one we will. And so this is the top part. I actually have two classes within this one file. The top part is basically all of this, and this is kind of our runner class that's just going to run the main class. And the main class where all our action is going to happen is called read file, right? So this is just setting up our GUI and calling the main file. The main file, the read file, is where everything happens. That's where I have those four class variables that I mentioned before. And you'll notice that, just so you notice, that we're 600 by 400 our interface. You can change that if you want. There's the try catch I was talking about. So this read function is going to read from the file, and you need to have, when you call that, you need to do it within a try catch, because if there's any issue reading the file, Java needs to have a way of dealing with that. And I just simply print out there was a problem. All right, and so let's go down here. This is kind of our paint method, our GUI, if you will. Nothing's happened there. Like if you run this right now, nothing really happens. I'm going to run it 1 second. I'll show you. But here's that read function that I was talking about, and the exact same code that I showed you before, except that I added this. We have that stats array list, and we're adding each line to the stats array list. And then I added the first line, which is line 0, to just paint that to the screen. Repaint basically says, hey, let's redo whatever we had in the paint method and show it again. Because if I didn't have this, it would just say player in here. That would never change. So I'll show you real quick what that would look like if, when I run this, you're going to run the main method in here, void main, okay? And you'll see you get this, which is, that's the top column in our top row of each column in our NBA.csv file. If you see, it said right active player. And so now if I put in 1 instead, I should get Michael Ray Richards. Let's see if that does in fact work. So if I change this to 1, I should now, oh, sorry, didn't want to do that. Should now see Michael Ray Richards' name in there. Yep, there it is, right? Right there. And so on and so on. And so what we want to do in our next video is break this down and use that split method that I was talking about to look at particular stats that we want to that we're interested in looking at. So I'm going to do that in the next video, but I'll leave you with this. Like if we uncomment this system out is going to show us all that data. It'll be a big terminal window scroll. See, there we go. So there's all the data in the database. It's probably 1,000 some lines, more than that. So there you go. I hope you like that, and please look forward to the next video in the next day or so that will follow up to this. Thanks.